Good day, colleagues. Today we'll be focusing on the topic of forces. Good day also to your grade 9 learners. This will be the first of the two lessons that your learners will receive on forces. Okay, let's start right away. My name is Disetso Mohutle. Welcome to the lesson. Our presentation outline is as follows. We will talk about what are forces. We'll also look at how do forces affect objects they act on. We'll also identify the two main categories or groups of forces. And then we'll identify and discuss three types of contact forces. And then again, identify and discuss three types of non-contact forces. And we will end our lesson with a force quiz for your learners to test their understanding of the lessons. Okay, what is a force? A force is defined as a push or pull that can change the motion of an object. The size of the force can be measured using the units that are called newtons or shortened capital N. Okay, learners, let us look at this following diagram. You will realize that there are two situations here. There is a gentleman here pushing a desk on the left-hand side of the picture, and the gentleman is pulling the desk on the right-hand side of the picture. In both instances, the man is applying a force. On the left, he is applying a pushing force. On the right, he is applying a pulling force. There are two things that I want you to note from the diagram. The forces always act in pairs, meaning if a man is pushing a desk, we also say that the desk is also pushing against the man. If the man is pulling a desk, we say the desk is also pulling against the man with a particular force as well. Okay, that is why we can say whenever one object exerts a force, which is an action, if a man pushes a desk, the action will be the applied force by the man will refer that as the action, and the pushing against the man by the desk will be referred to as the reaction force. Now, the other thing that I want you to note is that the paired forces act in opposite directions. What does that mean? It means if a man is pushing to the left, as you see on this diagram, the desk is also pushing against the man, but to the right. If a man is pulling the desk to the right, the desk is also pulling against the man to the left. How do forces affect objects? Objects can be affected in many ways because of the forces. Let us look at all the effects of forces. Forces can change the shape of an object. Forces can start or stop the motion of an object. Forces can change the direction of an object that is already in motion. Forces can change the speed of an object. Okay, let us look at the changing of a shape. You see here we are looking at a baker who is actually busy doing the flattening of the dough. So the dough was not flat. So what the baker did was to flatten the dough using the force of his hands. Another example of starting or stopping a motion, a man uses a force to move a stationary lawnmower from a stationary position to a moving position. Forces can also change the direction of a moving object. For example, a footballer can kick a ball to another footballer who will in turn change the position, the direction of the ball and pass it on to another player. So using the force of the feet. Forces can change the speed of an object. A cyclist uses a bigger force to pedal, increase the speed of a bike. So if the object was already in motion, one can use a force to increase the speed. The two main groups of forces are, we've got what we call the contact forces and the non-contact forces. Now, how do we define the two? For forces that occur when two objects are touching are referred to as the contact forces, whereas forces that act on objects without physical contact are referred to as the non-contact forces. Now, contact forces are subdivided we've got three types that we are going to deal with in grade 9. The frictional force, the tension force, the compression force. And then the non-contact forces are the gravitational force, the magnetic force, and the electrostatic force. Okay, the contact forces, for example, frictional force is the force that opposes the motion of an object. For example, a child moving down a slope on a slider until a stop. We say until a stop because the frictional force will be always pushing against the slider until the slider stops. Otherwise, if there was no frictional force, the child will be sliding forever without stopping. Elastic force, it is the one that is used by a spring. We can use a spring to compress it so that when we let it go, it decompresses. Then when you press them together, the spring is making it smaller. We're talking about compression force. When we let the spring to enlarge again, that becomes an elastic force. Now the force exerted by a stretched or compressed object, example, is a compressed or stretched spring, as you see in that example there. The other one is the tension force, the force that is transmitted through a string, rope, or cable. Please note in all the three examples, the applied force or the object that is applying the force, okay, it is touching the other object on which the force is acting on. The non-contact forces, we've got what is called the gravitational force, the force that pulls objects towards the center of the earth. An example, an apple falling from a tree is being pulled by gravitational force. And then magnetic force, an example of that is a magnet attracting a paper clip. And lastly, the electrostatic force, the force between charged objects. A charged balloon attracting the pieces of paper. That concludes our lesson for today, learners. Thank you very much. And then here is our quiz.